Hello. My wife, Emma, and I had been married for 6 years. We were the couple everyone admired, happy, stable, and seemingly perfect for each other. At least, that's what I thought. I worked as an IT specialist, while Emma was a marketing manager with a flair for creativity. Life was busy but good, or so it seemed. We had a small circle of close friends, but no one was closer to me than Ben. We'd been best friends since college, inseparable through thick and thin. Ben was charming, outgoing, and had this magnetic energy that people couldn't resist. His wife, Olivia, was the quieter type, a school teacher with a warm smile and a kind heart. The four of us spent countless weekends together. Barbecues, double dates, vacations. It felt like family. But looking back, I should have noticed the signs. It started about 6 months ago when Emma's behavior began to shift. She started dressing up more than usual for casual meetups, wearing clothes I hadn't even seen her buy. She laughed a little too hard at Ben's jokes and found excuses to bring him up in conversations. At first, I thought I was overthinking it. Ben was my best friend. After all, why would I suspect anything? But the little things started to pile up. Emma was on her phone more than ever, texting late into the night with a sly smile she didn't bother to explain. Whenever I asked who she was texting, she'd shrug it off, saying it was work-related or one of her girlfriends. Her tone always carried just enough irritation to make me feel guilty for even asking. Then there were the late nights. Emma had started working overtime, staying out long past her usual hours. When I asked why her workload had suddenly doubled, she claimed it was a busy season at the office. "I'm doing this for us," she'd say, brushing me off with a kiss on the cheek. I wanted to believe her. I really did. The turning point came one Friday evening. Emma had left for one of her late meetings, and I decided to spend the evening unwinding at home. Ben called, asking if I wanted to grab a drink, but I declined, saying I was tired. As the night dragged on, I realized Emma wasn't replying to my texts. My gut told me something was off. Around 10 p.m., my phone buzzed with a notification. It was a message from Olivia, Ben's wife. It simply read, "Can we talk? It's important." We hadn't spoken much outside of group hangouts, so her message caught me off guard. I replied, telling her to call. She didn't waste time. "Hey, Liam," she said, her voice trembling. "I don't know how to say this, but I think Ben and Emma are seeing each other." "That's impossible. Ben would never. Emma would never." "I know how it sounds," Olivia interrupted, "but I've seen things, messages on Ben's phone. And tonight, he told me he was meeting you for drinks." My heart dropped. He called me earlier, but I told him I wasn't going out. There was a long pause. "Liam," Olivia said quietly, "I think they're together right now." I didn't know what to say. My mind raced, 1,000 thoughts colliding. Anger, disbelief, betrayal. "Do you have proof?" I finally asked. "I have screenshots," Olivia replied. "Messages between them. I'll send them to you." When the screenshots came through, I stared at my phone, my hands trembling. The texts were unmistakable. "Ben, can't wait to see you tonight. You always make my day better. Emma, I'll sneak away as soon as I can. I miss you." There were more, messages filled with pet names, inside jokes, and hints at physical intimacy. The timestamps matched the nights Emma claimed to be working late. My head spun as the realization hit me. My wife and my best friend had been lying to me for months. I called Olivia back, my voice shaking. "Where do you think they are now?" "There's a hotel near the edge of town," she said. "I checked his location on our shared app. He's there." I didn't need to hear anything else. I drove to the hotel in a blur, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. When I pulled into the parking lot, I saw Ben's car parked near the entrance. My chest tightened as I stepped out and marched inside. The receptionist gave me a wary look, but I ignored her, heading straight for the elevator. I didn't have a plan. I just needed to see it with my own eyes. When I reached the floor Olivia had mentioned, I scanned the hallway for room numbers. My heart pounded as I approached the door. I raised my fist to knock, but before I could, I heard voices from inside. Emma's laugh, followed by Ben's deep, familiar tone. Something inside me snapped, fury overriding any sense of composure. "Open the door," I shouted, my voice echoing down the hall. The voices inside went silent. A moment later, the door cracked open and Ben's face appeared, his expression shifting from shock to guilt. "Liam, what are you doing here?" he stammered. "What am I doing here?" I spat. "What the hell are you doing here?" "With my wife." Emma appeared behind him, wrapped in a hotel robe, her face pale. "Don't you dare insult me with excuses." I turned to Ben, my so-called best friend. "How long, Ben?" He opened his mouth, but no words came out. The silence was answer enough. I left the hotel that night, my mind racing with anger and betrayal. I didn't know what my next move would be, but one thing was clear. This wasn't over. Emptiness hit me like a freight train. The house, once filled with laughter and memories, felt cold and foreign. I sat in the dark for hours, staring at the walls, trying to make sense of what had just happened. My wife, my best friend, together. It wasn't just betrayal, it was humiliation. I couldn't let this go. I couldn't be the guy who just walked away while they got to continue their affair in secret. No, if they wanted to burn my life down, I'd take them down with me. The first step was to control my emotions. The next morning, I called Olivia. She answered on the first ring, her voice thick with exhaustion. "Did you confront him?" she asked. "I did," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "But it's not enough. They need to feel the pain they've caused us." She was quiet for a moment. "What are you thinking?" "I have a plan," I said, "but I'll need your help." Olivia agreed without hesitation. She was just as angry and hurt as I was, and together, we began to piece together the steps for what came next. Over the next week, I went into full detective mode. I scoured Emma's phone when she wasn't looking, screenshotting texts, emails, and photos between her and Ben. I even found a hidden album on her phone filled with selfies she'd sent him, pictures she'd never shared with me. Each discovery was another dagger to the heart, but I pressed on. Meanwhile, Olivia did her part, gathering evidence from Ben's devices, even a video he'd taken of Emma without her knowledge. It was a goldmine of evidence, the kind that would leave no doubt about their affair. During this time, I played my role perfectly. I acted as though nothing had happened, keeping my tone casual when speaking to Emma. She didn't suspect a thing. If anything, she seemed relieved that I hadn't confronted her further. She even tried to initiate small talk during dinner, as if we were just another happy couple. But beneath my calm exterior, I was boiling. The real breaking point came when Emma casually mentioned Ben during one of our conversations. "Ben said he's thinking of taking Olivia on a trip," she said, her voice light. "Isn't that sweet? He's trying to make up for being so busy lately." I nearly choked on my drink. The audacity of her to speak about him like that, as if I didn't know the truth, was almost laughable. "That's nice of him," I said, forcing a smile. A week later, Olivia and I met in person at a quiet cafe on the other side of town. She looked just as exhausted as I felt, but there was a spark of determination in her eyes. "I found something," she said, sliding her phone across the table. I glanced at the screen, where a thread of messages between Ben and Emma was displayed. In one of them, Ben had sent Emma a long, detailed message about how he wished he could leave everything behind and start a new life with her. "He's planning something," Olivia said. "I think he wants to leave me." I shook my head. "Not if we get to him first." We finalized our plan that night. The goal wasn't just to expose them. It was to destroy the fantasy they'd built and make them face the consequences of their actions. The first move was subtle. Olivia and I began spreading small, vague rumors among our social circles. Nothing too direct, just enough to plant seeds of doubt about Emma and Ben's behavior. Friends and acquaintances started asking questions, which Emma dismissed with a laugh when she heard about them. But the real blow came when we sent the evidence to the people who mattered most, Emma's and Ben's families. I'll never forget the look on Emma's face when her sister called her in tears, demanding to know if the rumors were true. Emma tried to deny it, but the photos and messages we'd sent were undeniable. Ben faced similar fallout when Olivia sent the evidence to his parents and co-workers. Within days, the cracks in their facade began to show. Emma confronted me one evening, her face pale and her eyes red from crying. "Liam, what's going on?" she demanded. "People are saying awful things about me, about us." I stared at her, letting the silence stretch. Did you ever think those awful things might be true? I said finally, my voice cold. Her expression crumbled. You don't understand. I understand perfectly, I snapped, cutting her off. I understand that you and Ben decided to betray the people who loved you the most. And now, you're finally paying the price. She tried to argue, but I didn't care anymore. The damage was done, and there was no going back. The next phase of the plan was the most personal. Olivia and I had grown closer over the past few weeks, bonding over our shared pain and determination. She was kind, supportive, and everything Emma wasn't. One evening, after another long day of plotting and scheming, Olivia and I found ourselves alone together, sharing a bottle of wine. The conversation started light, but soon turned deeper, both of us opening up about the betrayal and how it had changed us. You deserve better than this, Olivia said softly, placing her hand on mine. So do you, I replied, meeting her gaze. The moment hung heavy between us, filled with unspoken tension. I didn't know where it would lead, but for the first time in weeks, I felt something other than anger. The night Olivia and I crossed the line started innocently enough. She invited me over to her place to go over the final phase of our plan. We decided to leak everything, texts, photos, receipts, to a private social media group of mutual friends. Let them see the truth for themselves. Let the affair blow up in their faces. When I arrived, Olivia greeted me with a warm smile, her hair tied back, and a glass of wine in her hand. She seemed lighter, almost relieved, as though the burden of Ben's betrayal was finally starting to lift. Everything's ready, she said, gesturing to her laptop on the dining table. Once we hit send, there's no going back. I nodded, my heart pounding. Let's do it. Together, we uploaded the evidence to the group, watching as the files loaded one by one. Olivia pressed the final button, and within minutes, comments and messages started pouring in. Shock, outrage, disgust. It was a wildfire we couldn't contain, and we didn't want to. With the evidence unleashed, Ben and Emma's lives began to unravel. Friends called them out publicly, demanding answers. Ben's co-workers distanced themselves, and Emma's family, once her biggest supporters, cut ties. They couldn't hide anymore. I should have felt satisfied, but instead, I felt empty. The revenge had done its job, but it hadn't erased the betrayal. It hadn't brought back the life I'd lost. Olivia must have sensed my mood because she poured us both another glass of wine and sat beside me on the couch. You okay? She asked gently. Not really, I admitted, running a hand through my hair. I thought this would feel better. She placed a hand on my arm. It's not about feeling better. It's about reclaiming your power. I looked at her, grateful for her support. And what about you? How are you holding up? She shrugged, a small, sad smile on her lips. I'm still figuring that out. We sat in silence for a while, the weight of our shared pain filling the room. And then, without thinking, I leaned in and kissed her. It wasn't planned or calculated. It was raw, a moment of connection between two people who had been broken by the same betrayal. Olivia didn't pull away. Instead, she kissed me back, her fingers tangling in my hair as the kiss deepened. For the first time in weeks, I felt alive. What happened next was inevitable. We moved to her bedroom, shedding the pain and anger that had consumed us, replacing it with something fierce and passionate. There was no guilt, no second-guessing, only the undeniable pull of two people seeking solace in each other. When it was over, we lay there in the dim light, catching our breath. Olivia turned to me, a teasing smile on her face. For what it's worth, she said, you're much better than Ben ever was. I laughed, a real, genuine laugh, for the first time in what felt like forever. I'll take that as a compliment. The next day, everything came crashing down. Emma showed up at my house, her face pale and her eyes red from crying. Liam, please, she begged as I opened the door. I know I messed up, but we can fix this. We can move past it. I stared at her, my anger bubbling to the surface. You think we can just move past this? You destroyed our marriage, Emma. You destroyed me. She reached for my hand, but I stepped back. I love you, she said, her voice cracking. I made a mistake. but it doesn't change how much I care about you." I laughed bitterly. "You don't love me, Emma. You love the idea of me, of a husband who forgives and forgets. But that's not who I am anymore." I handed her the divorce papers I'd prepared the week before. "It's over. Sign these, and we can both move on." The divorce was brutal. Emma tried to drag things out, claiming she deserved more than the basic settlement I offered. She even accused me of infidelity when she learned about Olivia and me. The irony wasn't lost on me. In the end, the court sided with me, thanks to the mountain of evidence I'd gathered. Emma walked away with the bare minimum, her reputation in ruins. Ben didn't fare any better. Olivia filed for divorce and took him to the cleaners, exposing his actions to everyone in their social circle. He lost friends, connections, and most of his dignity. But revenge came with its own cost. Even after the divorce was finalized, I struggled to move forward. The betrayal had left a mark I couldn't erase, and rebuilding my life felt like an uphill battle. My finances were stretched thin, my mental health was in shambles, and trust felt like a distant memory. Olivia and I tried to make things work, but the weight of our shared pain proved too much. What started as a moment of connection turned into a constant reminder of what we'd lost. We parted ways amicably, both understanding that we needed to heal on our own. Months later, I found myself in a small apartment on the edge of the city, far from the life I'd once known. It wasn't easy, but it was mine. Slowly, I started piecing my life back together, one step at a time. Therapy helped, as did reconnecting with old friends who reminded me of the person I used to be. Emma and Ben? I don't know where they are now, and I don't care. They're no longer part of my story. As for Olivia's parting words about me being better than Ben, I'll hold on to that. It's a small victory, but in this messy, complicated chapter of my life, I'll take what I can get. Goodbye.